Conrad and Belly, sharing a warm cup of tea on a cold day hot beverage. The first snow of the season arrived quietly. When Belly pulled back the curtains that morning, the world outside had disappeared beneath a soft blanket of white. The trees looked like they had been dipped in sugar, rooftops shimmered under fresh snow, and the wind painted little swirls across the empty streets. She smiled. Winter had always carried memories, some joyful, some bittersweet, but today felt different. Today felt peaceful. From downstairs came the familiar sound of cabinets opening and closing. Conrad. He was already awake. Belly slipped into her oversized sweater and padded downstairs in thick socks. She found Conrad standing in the kitchen, staring thoughtfully into an open cupboard. "What are you looking for?" she asked. "Our favorite mugs," he answered without turning around. "The blue ones." He nodded. "I think they're on the top shelf." He reached up, stretching just enough that Belly laughed. "You know," she teased, "asking for help is allowed. I had it under control. You've been searching for 2 minutes." He finally grabbed the mugs and held them up triumphantly. "See, I'll pretend that was impressive." He grinned, the kind of smile that always made the room feel warmer. Outside, icy wind rattled the windows. Inside, everything felt wonderfully cozy. Conrad filled the kettle, while Belly searched through their growing collection of teas. "So," she asked, "what kind today?" He leaned against the counter. "Something warm." "They're all warm. You know what I mean." She smiled as she held up different boxes. "Chamomile." He shook his head. "Earl Grey." "Maybe." "Cinnamon spice." His eyes lit up. "There it is." "I knew it." The kettle began to whistle, filling the kitchen with comforting sounds. Steam curled into the air as Conrad carefully poured the hot water into their mugs. The rich scent of cinnamon, cloves, and orange drifted through the room. "It smells like winter," Belly whispered. "It smells like home," Conrad replied. She looked at him for a moment. There was something beautiful about simple mornings. No parties. No big adventures. No dramatic speeches. Just 2 people making tea together. Sometimes that was enough. Conrad handed her a mug. "Careful. I know it's hot. I also know you." She laughed. "Fair." Together they walked into the living room, wrapping themselves in one enormous blanket that somehow always ended up being shared instead of folded neatly away. Snow continued falling outside. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. They simply listened. The quiet wasn't awkward. It never had been. The crackling fireplace filled every pause with gentle warmth. Belly took her first sip. "Oh. What?" "This is perfect." Conrad tried his own. "You were right. I usually am. I'll allow this victory." She bumped his shoulder playfully. "I'll remember that." He chuckled. "Of course you will." Outside, children had started building snowmen in the nearby park. Their laughter floated faintly through the glass. Belly watched them. "Do you ever miss being that young?" Conrad considered the question carefully. "I miss how simple everything seemed." She nodded. "Me too. But," he added softly, "I don't think I'd trade what we have now." She looked at him. "What do we have?" He smiled gently. "This." He lifted his mug slightly. "A cold morning. Tea. You. No pretending. No running away. Just peace." Her eyes softened. "I wouldn't trade it either." The silence that followed felt full instead of empty. Belly rested her head against his shoulder. "You know what I love?" she asked. "What?" "That we don't always have to fill every quiet moment." Conrad looked toward the snow-covered trees. "I spent so much of my life thinking silence meant something was wrong. And now, Now I think silence can mean you're exactly where you're supposed to be. She squeezed his hand beneath the blanket. I like that. Minutes drifted by. The tea slowly cooled. Neither of them rushed to make another cup. Instead, they shared stories. Belly remembered childhood snow days, spent making impossible snow forts. Conrad admitted he had secretly loved hot chocolate more than coffee growing up. I knew it. You did not. I absolutely did. There is no evidence. You smiled differently when you drank hot chocolate. He laughed. That's oddly specific. I notice things. You always have. The conversation wandered from memories to dreams. What kind of house do you imagine someday? Belly asked. Conrad looked around thoughtfully. Not huge. No. No. What matters is who fills it. She smiled. Good answer. You. She imagined it for a moment. Big windows. A kitchen where people naturally gather. Books everywhere. A porch. And probably too many blankets. Conrad nodded seriously. I support the blanket plan. You would. And a cabinet full of tea. She laughed. Obviously. Outside, snowflakes continued dancing through the air like tiny feathers. The world seemed quieter than usual. Almost as though winter itself was encouraging everyone to slow down. Conrad stood. I have an idea. What? Wait here. He disappeared into the kitchen. A minute later, he returned carrying a small plate. Fresh cookies. When did you make these? Yesterday. You hid cookies from me. I was preserving them. For us. She picked one up immediately. They're still soft. I know. You planned this whole cozy morning. He shrugged. Maybe. You are impossible. I prefer thoughtful. She smiled. I'll let you have that one. They dipped cookies into warm tea, laughing whenever crumbs threatened to fall onto the blanket. Nothing extraordinary happened. No surprise visitors. No sudden storms. No dramatic confessions. Only the kind of happiness that quietly settles into ordinary moments. The kind people sometimes overlook until years later. Eventually, the afternoon light began to fade. The snowy sky turned pale blue, then silver. Belly looked at their nearly empty mugs. We should make another pot. We probably should. Neither of them moved. She laughed. We're too comfortable. Definitely. So what now? Conrad wrapped the blanket a little tighter around both of them. I vote we stay here 5 more minutes. You said that 20 minutes ago. I know. I'm beginning to think your 5 minutes aren't accurate. They're emotionally accurate. She burst into laughter. I have no idea what that means. Neither do I. She leaned closer, smiling as the warmth from the fireplace mixed with the lingering heat from her tea. Outside, winter continued painting the world white. Inside, there was warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. Sometimes love wasn't measured by grand declarations or unforgettable adventures. Sometimes it lived in shared blankets, steaming mugs, gentle laughter, and conversations that wandered nowhere in particular. Sometimes it looked like remembering exactly how the other person liked their tea. Sometimes it sounded like quiet instead of words. As the evening settled around them, Conrad reached for Belly's hand. She intertwined her fingers with his without thinking. Neither of them needed to say anything. The snow would melt. The seasons would change. Life would continue bringing unexpected joys and difficult days alike. But they knew there would always be mornings worth slowing down for, warm cups waiting to be shared, and a place beside each other where even the coldest winter day could feel like home. And with fresh tea waiting in the kitchen and snow still falling softly beyond the window, Conrad and Belly smiled, knowing that sometimes the smallest moments became the ones remembered forever.